The past year has been full of so many changes besides even a pandemic. For me personally, my husband started a side business selling cookies out of our home. Has done really well overall with that. We had a third daughter in August of last year. I closed my daycare that I had been doing for 5 years. But even more so in the last 4 months, I've gone through even more changes by switching around all the rooms in our house, working more on my business on the back end, and also deciding to homeschool this upcoming fall. So I thought it was time for me to just sit down and answer a bunch of your questions because you guys have had so many questions about all the recent changes and just different things transitioning to 3 kids, business questions, financial questions about how we afford these projects and things like that. And I thought it was time to just spill all. So that is what I'm going to be doing this week. This is going to probably be a longer episode. So I will put timestamps in either the YouTube description box if you're watching there, or in my show notes if you are listening on a podcast app, so you can jump ahead if you are wanting to just hear about a certain area. So let's start the episode. Glue. It's messy, it's sticky, it gets everywhere, but it's also really useful. Just like the glue that we need to put together the pieces of our life as busy working moms. We have after school activities, we have homework, we have cleaning, we have laundry, and we want to spend time with our kids as well in the process, and maybe even have some time for ourselves. This podcast is for the busy moms out there who are balancing work, life, and everything in between. And we all know that in between encompasses a lot of things. If you're a mom who wants to do the best in all areas of life, but still have time for yourself, this podcast is for you. I love to interview other moms and find out what works for them, get ideas from them, get inspired by them, and learn, we're all in this together. But I also like to share my own tips, tricks, struggles, triumphs, and share it all with you. So grab a load of laundry, lock yourself in the bathroom, go for a walk, do whatever you got to do, but I am just so glad you're here. Hey Glue Sticks, my name is Sarah if you are new around here, and I love to share a weekly podcast with you guys. I also have a YouTube channel where I share 2 to 3 other videos in addition to the podcast episode. And I love to share how we create balance that sticks in our family, how I balance working from home, being a mom, being a wife, being a daughter, and all those things. And I just have a huge passion for kids' play, for organizing, for decluttering, for really managing your time, and just having a real voice for moms. That's not about perfection. That's not about looking perfect. That's not about the perfect house, a really expensive house, or buying all the perfect things. It's really about being real and relatable and authentic and just sharing my true journey as a mom. And I encourage you guys to be your true authentic selves as well. And so I am so excited you are here. If you're new, I would love if you would subscribe. And if you are returning, welcome back. Thank you guys for being here. So like I said in the intro, I am going to be answering a whole bunch of questions that you guys had. I asked over on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. I have a whole Facebook group dedicated to moms who have the same philosophy for life as I do. It's called the Work Life Glue Moms Facebook group, and I love to have a daily post over there, just fun stuff, real stuff, hard to talk about stuff, and we just have a really awesome community over there, and you can always ask questions over there for advice and things, and it's just an awesome community. I would highly encourage you to join over there. There's a lot more content that I don't put over here, I put over there. So let's just jump right in. I have a whole list. I took all the questions. I'm not going to be reading people's names because that just takes a lot longer and I always butcher them. So I just left names out of who asked questions, but I've broken it down into homeschooling questions because you guys have a lot of questions about that. Parenting and marriage, I kind of lumped together. Organization, decluttering, homemaking, that kind of stuff. And then financial questions and business questions at the end. So like I said, I'll have timestamps below. If you guys are just wanting to hear about business questions, you can jump ahead. But let's just get started by talking about homeschooling. So I shared in a video a few weeks ago that we are quitting school at the end of the school year. We are homeschooling. If you really want to know why we decided that, the whole video goes into that. It's a really good video, just sharing why somebody might want to homeschool. And it may not be all the reasons that you think. So I would highly encourage you to go watch that video if you haven't seen it already. And then I also did a video about our homeschool curriculum choices for my first grader next year. I have a 6-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and a 7-month-old when I am recording this podcast episode, but they will be Just turned 1, just about to turn 4, and then 6.5 when we start officially homeschooling this fall. So just to give you kind of a little background on that. And so she's doing public kindergarten right now, but she will start first grade at home. And my 3-year-old actually is going to be doing preschool out of church 2 mornings a week. For her personally, and you're going to get this theme a lot in this episode, is that we really just cater all of this to our unique daughters and what we think is best for them right now, not forever. We're not locked into anything. I learned very quickly as a mother not to get locked into any philosophy, any prescribed way of behaving or reacting or disciplining, because so much can change. And so I never try to say this is for sure what we're going to do forever. But our 3-year-old is very, very social. I think could really benefit from having structured time at a school. It's going to be at a church. It's a preschool. It's like 2.5 hours a week per day, twice a week. And so she'll be doing that. And this will also allow me to really focus on our oldest daughter and do a little bit more intensive homeschooling, I guess, during that time when she's gone those 2 days a week. And she saw my older daughter go on the bus and go to school. And I just really want her to still have somewhat of that experience. And she has a friend that's going, and I just think it's a great way to learn about God and preschooling concepts from somebody else, because she's only ever been with me, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It just, that's just our personal preference. And I just think it would be really good for her. She's super social. Okay, so first question is your daughter's homeschool also through a schooling program on the computer, or are you doing all the teaching with books only? So we are not doing any kind of online schooling. At least that's not the plan this year. I did not want her to be on the computer a lot because we saw what that was like with distance learning. And I know it's probably a lot different depending on what online school you use, but at her age, I just don't think it's necessary for us. But I have a whole curriculum I'm going to be using that's very literature based and very kid centered, in that it's like a more graceful approach to learning, not like super heavy right away. I guess you could say it's a slower approach, and it's play based and a lot of fun and literature based. And unit study. So I'm just really excited about that, and I have a whole video on that. But we will not be doing any kind of online schooling at all that I can think of off the top of my head. None of it's an online school. As your kids get older, will you let them choose if they want to go to public school? My quick answer is no, in that I believe as their parents, that is our final decision of whether they go to public school, private school, boarding school, like whatever kind of schooling we did, that is our decision. But will we continue to communicate with our kids and let them share their opinions and take them into consideration? Of course. But I think ultimately we've had more life experience. We've both been to public school. We know more about what's going on in the world and what is coming up ahead in their schooling, and they don't. They're very young. They're very naive, even as teenagers. They may think they know everything once they're teenagers, but I know there's a whole lot that they don't know. And I really want that to be up to us as the parents, just as I don't think you would let your kids decide what school they're going to go to. Usually that's the parents' decision. Obviously you might use their information and opinion to guide your choice, but I'm not going to let our kids have the final say, if that makes sense. Will you be doing parent-directed homeschooling or blended? Honestly, our actual schooling is probably going to take about an hour and a half every day. So it's not very much time at all. And then the rest will be open-ended play or going places, doing things, that kind of thing. So I guess I would say blended. There's definitely a portion of it where I'm going to be teaching, but it's still it's like a very soft approach. And I'm going to do it with both of my older girls because I can't really do anything with just one at this point. The 3-year-old always tags along and wants to be involved, so she'll be involved as well. But yeah, I guess it's kind of blended. The actual schooling part, I guess, is parent directed. And as they get older, obviously they'll take over more of that. But then a lot of the day will be them doing what they want to do. Will you still have the little boy you watch in the fall when you homeschool? Will he participate or can he choose to play? So I will not have the little boy anymore. His parents decided to do a different program with him next year, which I fully support and expected, quite honestly. And so I would have kept him had they not wanted to do that. But, it just kind of worked out for everybody because now we can go do a co-op once a week and things like that. So I will not have him. Had I had him, I would have just done the same stuff with him that I'm going to do with my preschooler. He's a year older than her, but he's still preschool age, so that would have worked out just fine. Will you homeschool all year or take a summer break? This is where I'm really stuck. I will not be starting this year officially until September because I will have the little boy all summer. And the hard thing for me is that in Minnesota, our summers are so short. We have such long winters with really crappy weather where it's hard to get outside. It's not very fun for adults, at least. I guess it's fun for kids, but there's just a lot more limited things you can do outside in the winter. And so I really want to take advantage of the summer, but I also see the benefit of homeschooling year round. So I'm kind of on the fence. I'm thinking about doing like year round with longer breaks in between every so often, but I'm not exactly sure yet. Can you share some supplies you still want to purchase, and will you show us a haul? So I do have a haul coming up. I'm still accumulating things, but I do plan to have a haul of like what I bought to really start out the year. You definitely don't need to spend any money to start homeschooling, but there were things that I wanted to get just to start us off on a good foot. Will I spend this much that I spent this year every year? I sure hope not, but there were just many things. Like I bought a small whiteboard that folds up. I bought a microscope. I bought a CD player because ours broke and there are CDs I want to use. Some reference books like dictionaries and things like that. And then I bought a wooden calendar because I just really love those. And I want to get our calendar up off the wall and just have it where we can just sit at the table and do that kind of stuff or sit on the floor and just various other things like my curriculum. Things I still want to buy. I'm not really sure. I feel like I've bought most of it. I do want to like buy some wall art for the homeschool room. I'm going to be taking down a lot of the stuff that's on the walls in there right now. So I want to maybe get some of those like vintage looking posters with like butterflies or plants or something like that. But I'm not exactly sure yet. I'd love to get a map up on the walls, but I haven't decided yet. So I don't really know. I can't think of any other supplies. I'm sure there will be more, but I can't think of any. I'm sure back to school time will help me find more ideas of stuff to add. Are you joining a co-op? So I am joining Classical Conversations. If you know about homeschooling, you've probably heard of that. If you aren't a homeschooler, you probably have never heard of it. I had never heard of it till I started looking into co-ops. The co-ops that I could find locally, it was very up in the air if they were going to be doing them next year. And so I just really wanted something for my kids to do that was social. And then once I learned about Classical Conversations, I thought this is really interesting. It's a lot about, at the earlier ages, it's a lot about singing and memorization and repetition and things like that to just really learn facts about letters, parts of speech, science, math. And they may not fully understand it at their ages, but it helps them build on it as they're older. They just have this stuff memorized. So once they're actually able to learn more in depth of what these things mean and how to use them and how to apply them, it's already in their head. So I thought it was really interesting. So we're going to try it this year. They have a community day once a week. I don't know how long the sessions are for like fall, winter, and spring sessions. So that I don't know, but we're planning to do that once a week and see how it goes this year. And if we love it, we'll for sure return. And if we don't jive with it, then we probably won't. We're just going to see. You don't really know how your kids will like these things or whatnot until you do it. My two younger daughters, who are 3.5 and 7 months right now, they will have like nursery playtime while my older daughter and I are in there learning. I think it's really cool too, because I can go with my older daughter and learn with her and kind of see what she's actually like in a school setting, which I think is really cool, and be involved in that way. And all of my girls will be making friends, and we can stay for lunch and they can play and I can meet other moms. And I just think that is the huge thing I'm really, really excited about homeschooling, is just the community that we're going to be able to build around our family and the new people we'll meet and the lifelong friendships hopefully we will make. And then what kinds of activities will you be doing with homeschooling? Our girls, I just enrolled them in dance. They've been doing dance for, my oldest has been doing it for a few years now. They love it. And I think it's just another great way to stay connected to our community and still maintaining those friendships and making new friendships with kids that they may not see otherwise because they're not in the public school system. We've been doing Girl Scouts with our oldest. I would love to do some kind of piano, or my oldest might want to do violin. I'd love to do some lessons, but I also don't want to like overdo it with activities. So that's the plan for right now. I would also love to go to museums, go to parks, meet with other moms, have play dates and stuff like that, and just stay really active, not super active all day, every day, but definitely get out and do things a few times a week. What do you think your routines will be once you start homeschooling? So I've thought a lot about this. I honestly don't know for sure until we start, but I imagine we'll be pretty early rising, just like we currently are. I don't really plan to switch our girls' sleep habits because I just think that would be a nightmare, and we're already used to getting up early, so we might as well stick with that. And that would allow us to homeschool earlier in the day, like starting at 7:30, and then be done by 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then have the rest of the day to go do stuff. So even if we wanted to run errands in the morning or go have a play date, we'd still have time in the morning after school. So I love that idea. And then I definitely plan to build in chore time, having them help more with meals, because right now I feel really rushed and overwhelmed with it, quite honestly, with school and the pressures of getting out the door. And since we won't have that pressure anymore, I think that will help a lot with trying to build in more of that stuff in the morning when my kids are in good moods, and not at night when they're burnt out, tired, and overwhelmed and just fight us on that kind of stuff. I'd rather build it in when they're in a better place emotionally and energy wise and things like that. And then last question regarding homeschool. How will you and Sam, that's my husband, work out personal time with homeschooling added to the mix? Will it have to change? So right now, when it comes to like personal time, well, right now I work from like 4 to 5:40 in the morning, most mornings if I get up on time. I've talked a lot about getting up early. That's just something I like to do. So I work during that time. And then I also work during nap time, which is like when I'm recording this. And that won't change. My 6-year-old is really good about playing independently during that time, so I can still get a lot done. I don't think we could have homeschooled had that not been the case, or we'd really have to work on it, because I still do have to work and bring in an income to support our family. And so that's going to stay the same. Right now, my husband often will go work out after work. He works from like 5 a.m. to about 1:30 or 2 p.m. most days. And right now we're still in a very slow season because of the pandemic. He's a chef. So I'm sure eventually that will pick back up and he'll have a crazy schedule again. But at least for right now and the foreseeable future, he has a pretty consistent routine, which is really nice. And so he goes and works out. And then right now, because I have the little boy, I don't often get my me time that we like to do. I like to have an hour, like he gets an hour to go to the gym, and I'd like to have an hour to do whatever I want to do. I think that's fair, and we both have agreed to that. But when the little boy is here, I often don't get that time. So once he is not coming anymore, I plan to do a lot of like exercising or walking or reading, just being active, or just taking some extra time to work or have time to myself for like an hour from like 3 to 4, 3:30 to 4:30, once my husband is home. That's the plan. So I don't really see that changing, just except that I will get more me time because I won't have the little boy I'm watching anymore. So I'm honestly really excited about that, just to be more consistent with activities and exercise and things like that. Okay, moving on to parenting and marriage questions. So somebody asked, could you do a what your girls eat for several days? I need new ideas. Now, what my girls actually eat versus what we serve them are very different things. go figure, when you are a chef, as a parent, which my husband is, of course, your kids are going to be extremely picky eaters. I feel like that's just how it works. If you're the preacher's daughter or son, you're the one who like rebels and acts up. If your parent is a teacher, you're the one who acts out in class or whatever. It's not always that way, of course, I'm stereotyping, but I feel like that was just exactly what we would get as kids who are picky with eating. So we've worked a lot on this, and we're just at a point where most days we serve them what we're having, and we make sure they have like yogurt or toast or some fruit that they like. So there's at least one or two things that we know they love on their plate. And then the rest is whatever we're serving. And I don't really care anymore if it's something they will touch or not. I don't really take that into consideration anymore because there's so few things they will actually eat that I don't even try. I just make sure that there's a few things that they will eat on their plate so they're not going hungry, but they're still being exposed to new foods. So that's more for supper. For lunch, I do pretty much do more like kid foods like sandwiches or pig in a blanket, turkey roll-ups, chicken nuggets. I'll do pasta, meatballs, just stuff I know they'll eat. It's stuff that's quick because I don't want to be spending a lot of time cooking. And then for breakfast, we're switching it up. Sometimes there's a breakfast they love. Sometimes it's not. I try to do a different breakfast every day. So I'm not too crazy with the food. It's just what it is. And if they eat it, great. And if they don't, they don't. I don't know. I just feel like so defeated in that area that I'm just trying to take the pressure off because they can sense that. And the more we pressure them, the more they rebel. And so I'm just like, eat what you want. Don't eat what you want. I don't really care. It's your body. You'll eat when you're hungry. Whatever. That's just what we do with our kids. Did you do cry it out with any of your kids? Our little one is 2 and such an early riser. So like everything with parenting, I really take this by each kid, each level, what we think they need, why we think they're crying, that kind of thing. I don't remember doing much cry it out at all. I think we maybe did with our oldest once she just started really fighting it and we knew she was tired and there was nothing else we felt like we could do. But I don't remember it being more than like, a couple days that we did it. I don't really remember, quite honestly. It's just a blur. Our other 2 daughters, honestly, were very good sleepers because I don't want to say because, like, I don't know why for sure, but we've always been very routine and structured with sleep and had the same exact routine over and over and over again. My current baby has been the hardest, I would say, with naps of any of my babies, but we switched her into a crib and in her own room, and that has helped tremendously with all of her sleep. She's now sleeping through the night earlier than my other 2 did, which is amazing, and naps really, really well. It just took some time, but we didn't do cry it out with that kind of stuff. I just would get her up and that kind of thing. And then at night, she's never once that I can think of like cried beyond waking up to eat and then going back to sleep. She's never cried. So we're really lucky in that way. With a 2-year-old rising early, I personally would not be getting that 2-year-old up until a decent hour. My kids would both wake up at 4 a.m. if I let them. I don't let them. So they usually now wake up, they're on their own between 5 and 5:30, but they play in their bed and they look at books until their clock turns green at 6:10. They will come out to go to the bathroom. Once I'm up getting ready, they will sometimes come out to ask a question or say something to me, but I'm really trying to train their little bodies to sleep longer. It's just very hard, but we've never had the experience of them like screaming and crying during this time. If we did, it was maybe for a day and I just laid down the law and said, no, you're not getting up until the clock turns green, and then it stopped. The reason I don't give in to them getting up that early is because I don't think they're getting enough sleep then, and I really don't want to start this trend of waking up earlier and earlier and earlier, and now they're not getting enough sleep. And I also think as parents, we have to balance what's best for our child, but what's best for us. Sometimes what our kids want and could do would really make our days harder and make our patience level lower and our energy levels lower. And so we just have to say no to preserve our energy so we can be better parents to them. But you have to weigh what works best for your family. But I think consistency and just clear boundaries is the best. And yeah, there may be a little crying here and there. I personally wouldn't call that crying it out if they're waking up early. You're just setting the boundary that you're not getting out of your bed yet. You can play in your crib, you can look at books, but you're not going to get out of bed yet. I don't think that's necessarily crying it out. That's just, okay, you're up, but it's too early to come out. So these are your options kind of thing. But that's just my opinion on that. I am due soon with my second. Any advice on dealing with any jealousy from our first little? Quite honestly, I was horrified of the transition from 1 to 2, and it went a bazillion times better than I could have ever imagined. Were there some jealousy issues? Yeah, but it was very minimal. And even from 2 to 3, I was way less worried about it just because our girls were used to daycare kids around, and my second born loves people, and I knew she might have some trouble with it, but we just, my biggest tip is just read a lot of books about a baby coming, talk openly about it. You can tell your younger daughter or you could tell your current child, like, this may be hard. It may be hard when the baby comes. You may be mad, but that's okay. I'll still love you. And I think it's okay to tell them that they may have these negative feelings so they're prepared. I don't think you're causing them to have negative feelings by saying that. I think you're just preparing them for what's probably inevitable, that at times they will be jealous, they will be upset, they will not like their sibling, they will want, the baby to go away. That's all very normal feelings for an older sibling to go through when they get a younger sibling. So I think that's a great idea. Talking openly about it, just talking about the baby a lot and getting ready, but just always reassuring them that you'll be there and kind of explaining how the baby will have to feed a lot but will also sleep a lot. So you'll get to do a lot with the baby in that way. I just think the more you can talk about stuff and be honest with your child, the better. But there's no perfect way to prepare them. You don't really know how they're going to react till it happens. Just be prepared for it to be hard. And then if it's not, that's a pleasant surprise. And if it is, you're prepared for it. How to make mornings not a struggle to get ready for school. For us, honestly, because our girls are very early risers, this has never really been an issue. I think if my child was really fighting me on going to school or getting ready for school, depending on their age, I would probably stop helping. I would probably stop nagging. I would probably stop engaging at all about it. I would probably just say, it's time to get ready. You need to get your clothes on, brush your teeth. We need to do your hair. Come find me when you're ready and we'll have breakfast or whatever. Our breakfast will be in 10 minutes, whether you're ready or not. And then we're going to go to school. And then I would put it on them and be prepared to follow through that they might have their pajamas on at school. They may not have brushed teeth and they may have crazy hair. And that's how they're going to go to school if they will not get ready, depending on the age, obviously. But if a child is old enough to get themselves ready, I think they're old enough to learn that there are consequences of not doing it and making it really hard. I know, having strong-willed kids myself, the more I engage, the more I try to force them, the more I try to manipulate them, not in a negative way necessarily, but like, if you do this, then I'll give you this, or if you do this, then we can go do this. I think it just backfires on me personally, and it becomes a power struggle. And so I would just not make it a power struggle. I would just say, and make it a natural consequence. If they don't get ready, then they smell kind of funky and they look kind of weird for school, and that's just it. And they'll probably stop doing it. And you may not even have to follow through. They may just see, okay, I'm missing breakfast or whatever. This is probably controversial, but it's just, our kids have to learn responsibility and consequences for their actions that aren't consequences we're putting on them. This is a consequence they're putting on themselves by not getting ready when they're perfectly capable. And I've tried helping and it's not working. So that's what I would do. I'm not saying it's going to make it easier per se or make them actually follow through, but it will hopefully eventually help fix the problem, or at least you're not having fights every morning. I don't know. How was your transition to 3 children? How did your older children adjust? Did you feel like it was hard to be able to spend time with your older children while taking care of a newborn? And how did you balance that? Okay, so my transition from 2 to 3 at first was, I think, really easy from what I remember. Quite honestly, it's a blur because then my oldest started kindergarten, and with the pandemic going on and everything on top of that, it was just a lot. I will say that my middle child, I don't know if parenting her became more difficult because she changed or because the baby was there and so that was a whole other level, or if she was acting out more because of the baby, or if it was just because she was nearing 3 years old. And I don't know why, but my kids get harder at age 3. So that has been hard. I don't know if it's acting out because of the baby. It definitely could be, or if it's just she was, went through a phase and it became harder. Or it's just harder for me to deal with because there was a baby and, had a very difficult birth, and things like that. So I don't know. The hardest part was like December, January for me, when our baby stopped wanting to nurse out in the open and was really fighting nap. That was really hard, not to lie to you guys. I had moments where I was like laying on the couch crying, like alone away from my family and wanting to just drive away. And I would never act on that. And I knew that was a sign I needed more help and more support. And I got that. And so it's been better. And I think we figured out she just has to nurse in the dark. And she's been nursing in the dark for the last 4 months now because she's a very distractible baby and will not eat a bottle, will not eat breast milk or anything unless we're in the dark. And that's hard too when you have a very active 3-year-old who gets into things. So we've made it work, but that's definitely been the hardest. And I don't really think that's because of having 3 kids. It was just a really hard phase my baby went through. And then the nap thing on top of it when I'm trying to do my business, and she was doing really well. And then all of a sudden it took a dive around her 4-month sleep regression. So that was really hard. Probably the hardest time I've ever had with a baby, I would say. And I think just hormonally, I get really off after I have babies. I've had postpartum depression. I've been on antidepressants on and off because of that. And I think just hormonally, it's very hard for me to cope with stuff like that after I have babies because it's just off. But now I'd say it's going really, really well. We love our 3 daughters. The balance has been a lot better and we're able to deal with everything. I did not feel like it was hard to spend time with my other 2 at all, really, because babies sleep so much when they're first born. At least my babies. I've never had a baby with colic, thankfully, but I know that would be really hard. But my babies just lay there and sleep for the first 2 months, and they nurse a lot, but my kids were ready for that and prepared for that, and they would just be around me. I did have some times where it was stressful, they'd be getting into everything while I was nursing, but overall, I would say it wasn't too hard. And the other hardest thing has been just the noise level of one of my children when the baby's sleeping, despite having 2 fans on and a sound machine. She could still hear screaming, and I still don't know what to do about it. It's gotten better because the baby sleeps better now, but that was really hard when naps were already really, really hard. I would get so triggered when one of my children would scream, just because they scream because they're just loud, not because they're hurt or not because they're mad, but just I'm having fun, I'm going to scream. It's just very common in our house, and maybe it's just part of having girls. I don't know. How do you fit in date nights with your husband? Quite honestly, we don't fit in a lot of them right now. We haven't gone on any dates, just the 2 of us, since the baby was born, I don't think. But we try to do them on Friday nights after the girls go to bed, but he's often working on his cookie business. So I'd say right now, those are kind of on the back burner. We do have late night conversations with each other, which to me feel like a date night because that's when we really connect with each other. It's not every night, but once or twice a week, we'll just sit at the kitchen counter and talk about life and what's going on in the world and our kids and stuff like that. But overall, with a pandemic and a new baby and everything, we're not going on a lot of dates, but hopefully soon we'll get back to that. How do you get ideas for sensory play and daily activities to keep the kids busy and playing independently? For me, I just like to have a lot on hand. So I have a lot of different things that I've accumulated over the years that we've given them for Christmas and birthdays and Easter baskets and things like that. So I will just kind of pull out some of that, and I think I've already will have posted the video on my new toy rotation system where I'm doing a bin every day or so that will have new stuff in it. So it's keeping things fresh and exciting and engaging for them without spending any extra money, which is great. So that's something we're doing. And then another thing I do is from time to time, I'll just go to Hobby Lobby or the dollar store or Walmart or Target, and I just walk around and I look for cheap things. And I just come up with ideas that way of like, okay, if I take, especially holiday themed sensory bins, like there's always at Hobby Lobby, there's always tons of different holiday theme things that are small that the kids might want to use and scoop. And so I'll just grab a bunch of those. And once you've done that for a couple years, you have a lot of different things you can pull from. And then I don't know. I just am always trying new things and looking for ideas online. I don't do a lot of stuff I find, but I do try to just keep an arsenal of stuff at our house that we can rotate through when anything's getting stale. With your daycare, you used to always do a lot of food prep on the weekend. Do you still do much of that? And do you ever do freezer cooking? Lately, we have not done a lot of meal prep on the weekends, and quite honestly, that's because I'm exhausted on Sundays. I have tried to do a lot of stuff on Sundays, and I just can't get myself to do it anymore. When I was doing daycare, I feel like in theory, I had more work to do, that I should be more tired, but in honesty, like I feel more tired now than I did then, and I feel a lot like I have a harder job now. When on paper it's not, but it just feels like that, I guess. And I think too with daycare, we had a lot less time to do things. And so I really wanted to get meals prepped because we'd have such little time to get supper on the table. And now we have more time. I don't have kids I'm waiting for to get picked up all the time. We can start it when the little boy is still here, and eventually we won't have him with us anymore. So I think that has just taken the pressure off of meal prepping on the weekends. I do still meal prep breakfast, which I've talked a lot about lately. But other than that, we don't do a whole lot. Sometimes we'll cook up a bunch of stuff, but it's very rare these days. And I don't do a whole lot of freezer cooking because we just found we wouldn't eat it. And it was wasteful for us. I mean, maybe eventually we'll get back to that. But right now we have not been doing that. What chores or responsibilities do you expect of your kids and at what ages? So for my kids, I feel like we're just starting to get to the age where they'll have set chores. We're going to start doing those once homeschooling starts. I just don't want to add anything else right now. I feel like my oldest has been through enough with the pandemic and quarantining multiple times and going to distance learning and then back and just never really knowing from week to week if she's even going to be in school or if she'll have been exposed to somebody with COVID and now has to quarantine. I don't want to add anything else in. It's been a lot on her emotionally, and I just don't want to add anything else. She already makes her bed, cleans her room. The kids, if I ask them to, will take their plates and stuff to the kitchen after supper, and sometimes I'll have them help put dishes away. But quite honestly, I usually at that point of the day just want to be left alone, and so my husband will take the kids and I'll clean up the kitchen. I do want them to learn these skills, but I'm burnt out at the end of the day, so that's why I want them to do a lot more of that earlier in the day to learn these skills. And once they're at ages where they're pretty good at this stuff and their help is actually helpful, then it will become like a main chore that they just always help with. But for right now, I'd rather save those things for when I have more patience and that kind of thing. So usually my husband cooks on his own for supper and I will take the kids, or if I make supper, he'll take the kids, and then we'll flip flop for whoever cleans up. And so I kind of just want a little breather to clean up and actually get it done. And my kids, quite honestly, are very wild at the end of the day. They have so much energy and they're not always listening the best by that time of the day. They're just kind of done. And it's just a lot more stress to have them help. So I don't have them help with that a whole lot unless I feel like they can do it without getting too wound up. But basically, cleaning up after themselves, cleaning up the yard when we ask, cleaning up their rooms, getting ready, making their bed, that kind of thing is what we do right now, but we'll be adding more for sure as our oldest and they all get older. How do you handle an only child who doesn't self-play? I feel like I have 3 children who don't self-play that well. They always want to be around me and involving me in some way in their play. I find when we're outside, it's a lot easier. I think just having always been around me, and with daycare, they would play and I would just sit there and play with them a lot of the time. So they kind of got used to that. And so it's been really hard to break them out of that. I think having something to do while they're playing is helpful, like being up and like cleaning, or, I'm around them, but I'm actively doing something has helped. And then also just giving them like 10-15 minutes of me playing with them and then being like, I have to go make a call or go check the oven or whatever, go to the bathroom, and then I leave and then I notice they start to play. But it's not perfect in our house by any means. How are you doing? How are you handling the stress of 3 kids, a marriage, side businesses, and the pandemic? That's very sweet of you to ask. Right now I'm doing really, really, really well. But it changes from week to week. And of course, there's always the lingering, like everything that's going on socially in our country and our world and the pandemic and just so much stuff like that's constantly in the back of my head. But I would say like when it comes to my home and my family, I'm doing really well and handling that really well right now. There's been some bumps along the road, but I'd say I'm doing about as well as I could be with everything. And I'm just really grateful that where my life is right now. Okay. Moving on to organizing and decluttering. How do you motivate yourself to organize or declutter? I think for me, I don't need a lot of motivation because I actually really love doing it, especially organizing. I like can't wait to get started. And usually I have to wait till my kids are asleep or somebody's watching them. And then I have a very limited time that I can do it. So that extra motivates me because I know I need to get it done or it's not going to happen, or we'll be living in the middle of everything sitting out. And that is like the hardest thing for me to deal with, is being mid-project and stuff is just sitting there. So that motivates me to get it done. Once it's all out, I would love to just say, oh, I just want to be done. But I think about it just sitting there and that motivates me to finish. So I think just loving it and thinking of the end result really helps me. What is your cleaning routine? I don't think it's a secret that I hate cleaning. So my main cleaning routine is I clean the counters and the table and the floors in the kitchen and the dining room basically after every meal. We run the dishwasher. We never go to bed with dirty dishes in the sink, that kind of thing. I will deep clean the counters whenever it looks like it needs it. I will vacuum whenever I realize it needs it, which is 1 to 2 times a week usually. The toilets I will clean about once a week when they look like they need it. That's really my cleaning routine. And we do have a cleaner who comes every other week now, which is a huge blessing. And she just does like a top to bottom clean. She cleans our showers, so I don't have to do that because I hate that with a passion. And she does the mopping and stuff like that. I will mop the floors, like the dining and kitchen, if it's getting pretty grody, but she does it every 2 weeks. And honestly, with me sweeping all the time, I don't think it really needs it a lot more than that. But if it gets gross, then I will do it. But I basically just do stuff when it looks like it needs it. And I've realized there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm just owning who I am and owning that I don't have a perfectly clean house, that I have a fly lady routine or this check boxes that I check off every day because I hate it. I hate cleaning. So I'm probably never going to stay on top of it like some people, and I've learned that that's just okay. Since doing the room switch, what are the pros and cons? Did it help your kids feel like they have their own special space? So this is referring to us switching around all the bedrooms of our house. We have a 4-bedroom house, but we were all 5 of us were sleeping in 3 bedrooms, and so now we have the 5 of us in 4 bedrooms. So my husband and I are in a room, and then our 3 girls each have their own room now, which for us has been so nice. I'm so grateful we did that. I wouldn't say like it has made a huge difference right now that they each have their own room and their own special space, but I think as they get older, it will, especially homeschooling. We're going to be around each other all the time. I think it's going to be so helpful to have a place that they can go where it's quiet, where they're alone, that nobody's allowed to go in if they don't want them to. I think that will be really good. So I'm glad we did it. It's also been really good right now that our older 2 aren't sharing a room, just because I think that would be very stressful just with the way their personalities are, and getting up super early. I feel like they'd be really loud and just be extra stuff to deal with. We would deal with it, but it would make parenting a little bit harder, I would say, and it would probably interfere with their sleep somewhat. But the main pros are, when they need to cool off, they each have a place to go to that's separate. That's the main thing. Like, they're getting better sleep, that kind of thing. Any cons that I can think of? I can't think of any right now. It's just been really wonderful. We've loved everything about it. Financial questions. How do you spend money while trying to save money all at the same time? So for us, we've gone through many phases of barely spending any money because we're trying to save a lot of money, or we just don't have a lot of money coming in. And we've been budgeting like a strict budget since, I don't know, like the last 8 or 9 years, I want to say. So we're very used to planning exactly where all of our money is going. And it just depends on our goals at the time, how much money's coming in, and so much has changed over the past few years with that. So, if we're really trying to save money or pay off debt or things like that and just really be gung-ho about it, then we don't spend a lot, like beyond our bills and things like that, and food and stuff like that. But a lot of times we just balance both. I just find that works better for us. Like, we've been doing these house projects. They are not very expensive. We're very frugal in what we buy and the things we buy, especially furniture and stuff like that with little kids. I feel like it's just for us not wise to invest in really expensive stuff, because whether it's expensive or not, it's probably going to get beat up. And so I'd rather just spend less. And I found IKEA furniture overall is very good quality with kids. So we buy a lot from there. And then, I don't know, just having a really strict budget and just having goals of where we want our money to go, and doing our best to stick with them. We're not perfect, but I think having a plan is really important, and keeping track of if you're following the plan or not. How do you save or prepare financially for house projects like the room switch? So some projects we have to save up for a long time. Some projects we can do more quickly depending on the cost. With that project, I actually got some money for Christmas, and so I put all of that basically toward it. And then we had some extra room in the budget, and that is what we discussed to put towards that project. Other projects, it just depends. We plan a few months out usually of when money's coming in. We often will use like months where my husband gets 3 paychecks to put more money towards projects and things like that, or whatever our goals are. Now with homeschooling, we've set aside some money to spend on that. That could have probably gone to savings, but we're now allocating it to that because it's important to us. I don't have any like black and white, tips or anything that I could think of off the top of my head. We just really budget it out and discuss it and figure out what works best for us every month and what our goals are. For business related questions, these are the last 2 questions. Have you ever thought about creating a planner to sell? Yes, I have thought about creating a planner for like the last 6 years. And every time I really think about it, I think about all the other planners on the market, and I can't think of a way right now to make mine stand out enough for it to be financially worth it to me, worth my time to sell. I guess if enough of you guys told me you wanted one from me and would actually buy it, maybe, but there's so many amazing planners and printables and things out there that I'd want to offer something unique that's not like what's out there already. And I'm not sure that I could do that, I guess. But yeah, I've thought about it a lot. And last question, did you feel fearful when diving into a new business venture? How do you move beyond that to get started? I guess I don't usually feel fearful about starting things like that. I get really excited. I think probably because all of the business things I've started have not cost a lot of money up front. So even if, I decide not to do it or it doesn't work out, like we're not out a lot of money. My husband's super supportive of everything I do. He's very honest about it, but he's also very supportive. That helps. I think I just love starting things and I love coming up with new ideas and learning and taking the actions that you have to take to start, that it's not very scary for me. I mean, I'm anxious, I guess, to some extent, but I wouldn't say I'm scared. So I don't really have a good answer for that because I just don't quite honestly feel that way. I feel excited. So I would maybe advise you to find ways to channel that fear into excitement. And it's probably the same feeling, but we're just registering it in a different way in our minds, and interpreting it differently, if that makes sense. So while you're feeling this anxious feeling, I'm thinking I'm excited and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, because we're both I want it to work. So if you can try to channel and refocus your thoughts around it to be excitement instead of fear, maybe that will help you get started. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it was long. If you have any additional questions, you can head over to the community tab on YouTube. And I always have a thumbnail that goes along with the video or podcast episode. And you can always comment there. I will have a link in the show notes as well as in the description, since YouTube has disabled our comments and you can't comment on podcast episodes in a podcast app, unfortunately. So you can head over there if you have any further questions or follow-up questions you can ask there. I hope you guys enjoyed getting to know me a little bit better, and hopefully these answers answered everything for you. So thank you guys so much for listening. I will see you soon. Go get something done. Go love on your kids. Go live your dreams. I'll talk to you soon.